Greetings, kindred. I am Voivode Maquette, and welcome back to our world of darkness, where today we're having a clan discussion about the Magisters. So settle in, pour yourself a glass of something red, and let us discuss Clan Lasombra. When I first started playing Vampire the Masquerade, I paid the Lasombra no mind. Reading through them in a borrowed copy of Laws of the Night, I really wasn't impressed. I was always directly interested in the Tzimisce, or even Clan Asimite. But the Lasombra seemed obnoxious, to say the least. My first attempt at playing one, I played an obnoxious aristocrat in the Dark Age game, who was more obsessed with the fact that his ghouls could tell him how his hair was than he was with anything else. My first experience dealing with Lasombra as a player character against another player character saw me brutally murdered with the bending of rules. And the only interaction I had with that same character after that was my next character, who I unfairly brought in to seek revenge and ruin his life. I would never allow that in my games. I was blatant that I wanted to come in with a character specifically to be a thorn in the side of the individual who killed my last character. Nowadays, my circles call that a Montoya character. Someone who has come back from the past for no reason whatsoever to claim revenge for the death of another character, be they related to them or not. My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die. Was basically the idea. Now, recently, after V5 came out, I have had the pleasure of playing a Lasombra. And Noah is a neonate anarch who was embraced after the situation concerning the beckoning occurred. Playing this ruthless nightclub owner who has found himself in charge of a small coterie of recently embraced individuals who have no idea what the hell is happening to them, has brought the control that Clan Lasombra has to mind. They have always been in control of something. The Lasombra were the founders of the Anarch movement. A lot of individuals think that was the Brujah, but in fact it was Clan Lasombra. They're the ones who turned on their antediluvian. They're the ones who slew him first. At least the story says that. Personally, anything that has dominate that high, I don't trust as far as I can throw it when it comes to who killed it. But the Lasombra's act created the Anarch Revolt. The Anarch Revolt created the Camarilla. The Anarchs who refused to take a knee to the Camarilla became the Sabbat. Lasombra have had their shadowy tendrils in the creation of pretty much every current sect of the world of darkness. At least on the vampire side. So what really has changed about Clan Lasombra? Because you can listen to anyone to hear about the history of Clan Lasombra. That's not exactly what I wish to talk about today. I wish to talk about where they are now and where they're going to go. Well, first and foremost, the world of darkness has found fit to include compulsions to the clans. Aspects of the clan's founders that shine through their blood and turn them into what they are tonight. Basically making it so that even though clan members tend to have their own personalities, they all have something in common. Something that even if it's not theirs. The blood of their founder puts it there. The Magisters of Clan Lasombra have ruthlessness. They do not abide failure, and they will do anything possible to make sure that does not happen. They will continue to fight for something until they get what they want. It makes me wonder about the Lasombra who are attempting to join the Camarilla. Their ruthlessness, their willingness to turn on their own kind, is what will get them in to the Ivory Tower. Now, the clan's bane has definitely changed since earlier editions, and I have to say for the better. Just not showing up in reflections has always been a little tiresome. I understand that it's a vampire staple, that in movies, if the monster doesn't have a reflection, it has to be a vampire of some kind. And that's the clan that they decided to give that to would be the Lasombra. But now, not only their reflection is distorted, not to the point where you can't tell who they are, but to the point where you look at their reflection and you can just tell there's something wrong. But they now also have a weakness when it comes to dealing with technological devices. They don't show up on recordings. They don't show up on CCTV. They don't properly show up on voice recordings. Oh, it is getting late. This new Bane is definitely good for the new era. With the collapse of the Sabbat and the Lasombra becoming refugees in the Camarilla, we are becoming more Dark Age than ever before. And the funny thing is, the elders who were around in the Dark Ages are not here to give anyone warnings because of the beckoning. Well, history repeats itself. And we'll see exactly where that goes as the clans continue to converge. The Lasombra will not stay beneath the boot of Clan Ventru for long. There's too much pride and ruthlessness in the Keeper's blood. Now, also in the Keeper's blood is Oblivion. I love the way that Obtenebration and Necromancy have come together to create Oblivion. Now, I will be reading this again in the Chicago by Night reading that I am currently in the middle of, but I do have to go over Obtenebration here. Oblivion is a root discipline, which has broken off into two practices, Oblivion, or Obtenebration, and Necromancy, which the Hecata have mastered. I believe that Oblivion of the Lasombra existed before Oblivion of the Cappadocians. I believe that because I believe that the Jovians of Rome, who in the Dark Ages they eventually did take underneath the Cappadocian wing and created the Giovanni. I believe their expertise in mortal necromancy is what truly formed the Oblivion of the Hecata today. So looking at Oblivion, at least for the Lasombra, we're looking at a discipline that comes primarily from the mind and runs off the blood of those individuals who are completely devoid of essence. Those that don't have any residence of feeling or caring. Sociopaths, psychopaths, individuals who suffer from certain types of mental deficiencies and insanity. The Lasombra need this blood to continue their practices of Oblivion, because they need to be detached emotionally if they are to increase the abilities that they have access to. That being said, we have Shadowcloak. Shadowcloak is a very interesting discipline because what it does is the very shadow stuff in a room that a Lasombra is in a height of passion or in a height of needing the stealth, the shadows converge and collect around the practitioner. They wrap themselves in the darkness, either increasing the intimidation or the ability to hide and blend in with their surroundings if it's dark enough. It's not difficult, it's completely passive, but the vampire does gain a 2-trait benefit to either of the 2 abilities, for as long as they need it. The next is Oblivion's Sight. By closing their eyes and activating this discipline, again, no cost, it does last for the scene, however, the Lasombra can peer through the shroud and see on the other side. This is a taste of necromancy given to the Lasombra. This brings to mind the old Chiasid bloodline of Clan Lasombra, a Fey bloodline, where the changelings and the Lasombra came together to create an abomination that practiced both Oblivion and necromancy. But with this free gift, they can see directly into the Shadowlands. Ghosts can try and hide, but they do pierce the veil with their vision. The level 2s begin with Shadowcast, where the very shadow of the Lasombra lives. Anyone who's paying attention will notice with a, what exactly was it? A difficulty of 3, wits plus awareness roll, will let them notice that there is no actual discernible light source that the shadow is coming from, that this incredibly thick, living shadow is coming from. Reminds me very much of the idea of the living shadow in Bram Stoker's Dracula, made by Francis Ford Coppola. I do understand that Dracula himself was a Tzimisce, but the living shadow seems very much to represent what Shadowcast is to Clan Lasombra. Arms of Aramain, one of the most terrifying things that any gamer or storyteller ever had to deal with. Shadow tendrils that come from the very inky blackness of shadows around you. The Lasombra doesn't even have to be directly near you to affect you with these things, because they come out of all shadows within line of sight of the Lasombra. Doing this, however, is an amalgam. You have to have at least 2 levels of potence. And what it does is it allows the tendrils to attempt to snake into dark corners of the room and overpower individuals. You can cover lights with them. You can attack. And it's described that the tendril itself can either wrap around the victim or attack the victim's shadow, which is still going to cause the issues for the actual individual. However, unlike the old system where the shadows just came out and whipped around and were solid shadow stuff, in this new system, they must stay to walls. They must drag along floors or over through the ceilings. If you have something standing in the way, it has to either go around or go over, which is going to deter the length, the distance that the shadows actually have. And the distance, well, the distance isn't all that impressive. The arms have a length of yards or meters equal to twice the Oblivion rating of the user. That can be terrifying. But this is a level 2. You could have a 6-foot reach. Get to that point, however, when you have a 10-foot reach. Shadow perspective. Vampire can project their senses into any shadow within line of sight. This is the perfect thing for a spy. Especially when you can use things like Shadowcast, and you can distort and elongate your own shadow to look around corners, scale the side of a a building. Either way, you never know when the Lasombra is watching you. Now, Touch of Oblivion, also level 3, like Shadow Perspective. The vampire using Touch of Oblivion channels the power through their vitae. When they make a physical contact, the annihilating element runs through the... You touch them and it literally cripples them. You're bringing atrophy. You're bringing the physical sensations of death into a individual. If you do it into their eyes, they go blind. If you touch their ears, they become deaf. If you touch their arms, they become shriveled and weak. You do have to make a rouse check to do this. And you do have to grapple onto your target. Level 4 introduces Stygian Shroud, which, for those of you who've played in the past, you will know that as the Cloud of Shadow, or the inky darkness that the Lasombra used to send out to us, except now it's a little bit more interesting. Darkness spews out of nearby shadows as a vampire blankets the area around them in gloom equivalent to moonless night. While sounds are muffled and indistinct, anyone viewing the effect from without see it as a shadow expanding over every surface, including the bodies of any victims in the area. Those apart from the invoker caught in the effect find themselves struggling to see and hear. Mortals can't breathe. It's only a single rouse check, and it does cause severe issues. It is one hell of a masquerade breach, if caught in the wrong light, you might say. Shadow Step was the coveted power of every person who ever played Lasombra in my old games. The idea of being able to step into one shadow and pass through to the other one is a pretty interesting thing. And the interesting part now is that shadow perspective comes in handy when this is used. Stepping into a nearby shadow, the user disappears only to reappear from the same or another shadow further away. Whether they enter the labyrinth or merely pass along its surface is a source of conjecture among many Lasombra and Hakata. So, it even states that this Hakata do have access to these things. Now, it is possible to bring another through the passage, but unless the person is willing, they must be held by a successful grapple. If a stain is incurred as a result of using this power, the passenger also receives one. Maybe that's the equivalent of stepping into the wrong neighborhood for Lasombra. Tenebrous Avatar, the other level 5. In this one, after 2 rouse checks, you literally become one with the shadows, where you can climb up walls, across ceilings, go under doors, through keyholes. Manifestation takes 1 turn, during which the vampire is unable to do anything else. They transform into literal shadow stuff. Practitioners can only take damage from fire and sunlight in this form, and mental disciplines can be used at storyteller's discretion as long as there's no eye contact. So I guess dominates right out. Now, the Lasombra. The Lasombra have definitely changed. And I say that because the Lasombra are smart. They've evolved politically. There's an organization inside Clan Lasombra, just as there is almost all of the other clans, where the Toreador have the Society of Roses, and the Ventru have the Board, the Tremere have the Pyramid, the Lasombra have the Amici Noctis. And the Amici Noctis is the Friends of the Night. They are a non-partisan group within the clan that does not care what sect you are. You can be Anarch, you can be Camarilla, you can be Sabbat. The fact is, you have to be a survivor, and you have to understand that clan comes before sect. The Amici Noctis does not want the Lasombra to take part in the Gehenna Crusade. Now, for the past 500 years, this is what the clan's been working towards. This is what the sect that the clan has been directing has been working towards. Finding Methuselahs and Antediluvians, tracking them down, and killing them. Possibly taking their blood in to make those who need it stronger, depending on who you ask. Typically, the Amici Noctis has to grant permission for a Lasombra to commit diablerie. But suddenly, the Lasombra are jumping over and becoming Camarilla refugees, turning on their own to do so. So why? Because they realize that the Sabbat has gotten out of control. The anti-tribu have gone off the damn deep end. They don't understand. None of the anti-tribu understand how it is to actually face an antediluvian dead on. And now even some of the Amici Noctis is actually, they're starting to doubt what they saw all those nights ago. They're starting to doubt that Lasombra himself is actually destroyed. They're starting to understand that the Camarilla knows more than they're talking about. They're not stupid. As it is, the Camarilla was founded due to the destruction of an antediluvian. The higher-ups, that inner circle of the Camarilla that nobody knows who's actually in that little room, they know what's going on. And they're doing their damnedest to keep everything suppressed. They're having their members go back to the technological dark ages to remove themselves from hunter lists and the like. The reason the Lasombra are being sent to join the Camarilla is to hide. They've seen things. Those members of Clan Lasombra who went to the east and fought in the Gehenna War have seen things. There's rumor that an ancient, possibly the founder of the clan, is up, walking around and stalking his children and enjoying it. That's why the Amici Noctis did not want the clan to go. Why they didn't want them to participate. It's said that 50% of the clan will end up joining the Camarilla. Well, that means 50% will stay in the Anarchs. Or stay in the Sabbat, correct? I don't think so. I think a small portion is going to deflect to the Anarchs. Just out of spite, out of sheer ruthlessness, not wanting to join the Camarilla. Then there's the fact that in cities where the Camarilla is accepting Lasombra refugees. The price, a common price, I should say, to joining the Ivory Tower is killing another Lasombra. There's not going to be many Lasombra left, if any, in the Sabbat. And the reason behind that is because they want to hide. They want to hide amongst those who have a masquerade established, so they can avoid their elders. They think that with the power that they hold in the Catholic Church, that they can point the Second Inquisition to the fight, and hopefully the humans will deal with it. The Amici Noctis are also terrified that, given all the years of Lasombra abuse onto the Anti-Tribute, that eventually the Anti-Tribute are going to do what they did when they were young, and they are going to rise up and devour their sires. They're going to rise up and they're going to devour their sect leaders. The Clan Lasombra will be targeted by the Sabbat. Clan Lasombra has a lot to prove, and I'm interested to see exactly how they're going to do it. How are the Lasombra Anti-Tribute going to react? The Lasombra who actually stayed in the Camarilla during the formation. The ones who have hated Clan Lasombra from a distance. The ones who consider themselves true Lasombra because they had decided to stay loyal to their fallen antediluvian. Either way, I guess time will tell, and I do look forward to hearing anything that any of you have to say about the subject. Are you playing Lasombra? What exactly does it mean? I think we're going to look more into Oblivion and the variations that it gives you in a different level. Perhaps on Metaflop Monday we'll discuss the disciplines and why they've changed and what they are. What do you think the world of darkness as a whole is going to be when all is said and done? I personally think that when the majority of the Lasombra belong to the Camarilla, we are going to have a major issue concerning the then true Anti-Tribute running the Sabbat. Do they have enough responsibility to do that? I guess we're going to find out if that happens. Anyway, I am Voivode Macat. This has been Our World of Darkness, and thank you for discussing Clan Lasombra with me. And I shall see you next time. Until then, stay safe out in the night. Good evening.